After putting a Nolan series on hold as Tenet's release date was removed off the calendar indefinitely, we are back now that Tenet has a release date, and after a while we have our next movie in the series, which is The Dark Knight Rises. The Dark Knight Rises is the third and final entry in Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight series about Batman. It takes place 8 years after the Joker's reign of anarchy over Gotham, and with the help of the jewel-thief Catwoman, Bruce is forced from his exile to save Gotham City once again, this time from the brutal terrorist Bane. So for me, this one has always felt like the odd one out in this series, not because it's bad, just because how different it is from the others. So in Batman Begins, we had the villain Scarecrow, who creates hallucinations through his gas. So that villain kind of messes with your mentality, your mind. Whereas in The Dark Knight, we had a villain, Joker, who messed with your sanity. So the first two, we've had really mentally based villains who destroy you through the mind, but in this movie we have Tom Hardy's Bane, who is an absolute brute. He is more of a physical challenge than any of the other villains have been. You know, I've seen Batman Forever, which I think Bane first made his big screen appearance. It was either Batman Forever or Batman and Robin, I do not remember. He had such a silly design in there. I know it's trying to be comic book accurate with him being in the Mexican wrestler suit. He looked very silly in that movie. And also in Batman Arkham Asylum, the game, I wasn't fond of his character design either. But I really like the design in this. It's very subtle, it's not flashy, it's not gonna catch your eye as much, not out of place. It's just a simple mask, which I found very effective. And just like Dark Knight, this introduces us to our villain very, very well. The opening scene, the plane sequence, which is an actual stunt, which took quite a while to master using the two different planes. And as Gotham are suffering from a lie from the events of the previous film, Nolan really manages the situation of what the city is like, and people who are keeping that secret, that lie, it really creates this element of mystery and unsurety. And you know, as I mentioned in the synopsis, Batman has been out of action for 8 years, so when he inevitably comes back into action, I like that they did make him rusty, you know, and I'm glad he didn't come in and just destroy everyone like he used to in his prime. You know, he's well past his best, he's injured, he's got a bad leg, so glad that he was rusty and it took him a while to get back into the groove of things. And I said this in my Inception review, I really enjoyed Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and Christopher Nolan must have enjoyed him in it as well, so he's back for this movie, which I really liked. He had a really nice relationship with Gordon, and just that there is a good cop in the city, I really enjoyed his character. I wish he could have been in earlier movies. I just straight up love the reveal of Bruce. You know, he's been in exile for 8 years, and when he was eventually shown quite a bit into the movie, I'm glad the way they did it. You know, his mystery, like, oh, is he even still alive? And then he comes out of the shadows quite literally. One thing Nolan's always done is he stressed how much behind the mask he is actually a man. It isn't just a hero, you know. Bruce suffers from his losses, you know, he's not sure he could do these things again. And I loved the way you could sense his fear even behind the mask when he was outmatched physically by Bane. But overall, you just have to give this movie props for being one of the most ambitious comic book movies ever. Now, compared to Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, I have a few more cons than those did. And the first of all, I just need to stress that Batman Begins and The Dark Knight were truly amazing. They felt like they were in a real world. So Nolan has built that up to us for what we expect in this movie. And obviously I said things are very ambitious in this movie and they don't feel as realistic. That's why I find it different from the other ones. This one feels more like a comic book movie, like something that would be, you know, in the MCU or the DCEU, felt like more of a comic book movie, whereas the other ones felt very realistic. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it just, for me, it sticks out like a sore thumb kind of in the Dark Knight trilogy. Maybe also because they include more CGI, you know. Batman has his Batwing, I believe it's called, the flying vehicle. That was CGI heavy, so maybe it's just that's where it crossed the line for me. You know, it's not a bad thing, it's just we've been used to these more realistic feeling comic book movies that maybe it feels a bit off. Yeah, and as I mentioned, I like the inclusion of Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and he did some nice things during this movie, but there's some arc he has towards the end. It feels a bit silly, to be honest. It would be a good arc if we had been introduced to this character, you know, in Batman Begins or even The Dark Knight, but just for one movie, it felt a bit rushed and a last minute idea. Had to come earlier on in this trilogy to have any effect, otherwise it just kind of gets a few laughs. Throughout this movie, Tom Hardy was great as Bane. The character was menacing, but I was really unhappy with the way Bane was treated towards the end. He was just pushed to the side, and it seemed as if he wasn't important anymore, which for me, he was the second best villain in the trilogy, you know. It was going to be hard to beat Heath Ledger, but he did a great job in fact. So it just upset me the way he was treated towards the end of the movie. So before I watched it recently, I'd only seen it once, but rewatching it, it wasn't as amazing as I had remembered. You know, I think it's because what I mentioned a lot in this is it felt more of a comic book movie than the realistic feeling movies that we'd gotten from Nolan before. It's still a good comic book movie. It doesn't stand out from Nolan's other two movies. Still a very ambitious end to Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy. I'm not sure if I'm 100% satisfied with the ending, but at least I don't hate it, so that's fine enough for me. In terms of rating, I give The Dark Knight Rises a 7 out of 10. It's still a good movie, just I didn't connect with it as much as others did. And you definitely should go watch it, especially if you've seen and loved the other ones, as you know, you just want to hear the end of this story. But yeah, very ambitious end to Christopher Nolan's greatest trilogy, or was it his only trilogy, I guess. Thank you all for watching this latest video. Please let me know in the comments what you thought of The Dark Knight Rises, and hey, if you want to see my other Christopher Nolan reviews, which does include my Batman Begins and my Dark Knight review, I'll leave it up in the corner right here. As I'm doing a lot of videos this month, I would really appreciate if you would like and subscribe. It would really help keep me motivated. And yeah, once again, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video.